welcome in to the Dynasty Org's broadcast of AGL's Week 3 between Dynasty Ruby and Worth. I'm Isaac, alongside me is Tiger, Tiger, it's been forever. It has been ages, but we are
It's
back.
been too long,
It's been
but we're
multiple
back together.
years.
And ironically, we're in the org that has in it the org we casted together in before. We used to be in Runeterra Academy. Now it's part of Aegis, but we're getting into the draft, so we'll have to put all of that aside for now. And we get to talk today about Worth and Dynasty Ruby. These are the top two teams in the Chemtech division of AGL.
Yeah, I mean 2-0 both weeks 1 and week 2 for both these teams, so off to a fairly strong start. But if we take a look at the bands here really fast, we have a kind of a split decision on where they want to target out. Worth really targeting that jungle pool, meanwhile Dynasty Ruby looking at the opposing later reboot ban.
Yeah, gonna just try to ban out a little bit of comfort early on. Some of the power picks right now getting taken away as well. I think Lysandra and Ashe pretty strong, and of course Ivern always eternally slept on. So I think that those are some good bans, but also some priority bans against some of the players. Xayah as a blind pick. I'm still on the train right now that Xayah gets countered by Kai'Sa, so I think that this is a great response early on in the draft from Dynasty Ruby.
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange take on it, but also there's maybe a certain level of comfort. Luxodon, no, I have that backwards. Bruno might just be a little have a little bit more comfort on that pick, but this is strange because now with Braum being locked in for Worth, I mean I was just assuming since Rakan was open that they were going to maybe try to force Dynasty Ruby into picking it there, but not even going to take it themselves is okay. No, that is locked in. That's a Zach. All right, I'm all for this.
Pretty strong engage coming out in the Zac, which complements Braum's secondary engage possibilities. You can get a lot of stuns off if you can start proccing some of the concussive blows, but Braum isn't really a primary engager on his own, so being able to help out with the Zac, that's going to do a lot of good. And the bot lane for Worth is very defensive. It's pretty difficult to kill off a Xayah Braum, especially after level 6. But one thing that Ruby has going for them is that Kai'Sa can still build towards that AP variety. It's a little tougher than before with the nerfs coming through, but I think that you can still go towards Liandry's potentially and just try to poke from long range. That's pretty effective against Xayah Braum. If you can wear them down over time, that's really when you can start to realize the potential of Kai'Sa as the counter pick to Xayah.
Yeah, I mean it's always really fun getting poked out for 3/4 of your health from 3 screens away in Fog of War. I use that term very loosely, but it is also certainly an option that the Kaiser can go. And now with Graves getting locked in for the side of Dynasty Ruby, certainly a even more viable now.
They've got some good DPS potential as well, with the Kai'Sa and Graves both being some level of marksmen. They aren't the heaviest DPS champions available, but they'll get the job done given a long enough period of time. Rel's a really good start to the front line, and I think that if they can get something like a Galio in the mid lane, then that could really complement their start to the draft and allow the damage carries to get in range and be safe enough to do their damage over that amount of time to these big tanks that Worth already have in the Zac and the Braum.
Yeah, and meanwhile, the second round bans have gone through. A bit of an interesting one. Xerath going to be the option for Worth to ban out, but that does mean Dynasty Ruby think they're going to go with that Azir. And some kind of the flavor of the month recently has been that Xerath counter to the Azir.
Yeah, that's going to allow them to pick up the Azir blind. There's still some answers, but some of the best answers have already been taken off the table in those bans of Xerath and Tristana. And even the fact that Kaisa was picked by Dynasty Ruby, it kind of takes away one of those potential checks. Instead, it's going to be the Lux for Do in the mid lane. I'm a fan of Lux, of course, as anyone who's been around me very much knows. And I think that Lux is a good replacement for Xerath here. I think that you're looking at a little bit less value than you'd get on the Xerath, but still the similar style, and actually adding to the defensive nature of the comp with the Lux W, that's going to provide extra value in a potential team fight. And Worth just has such good disengage this game that I think that if they get ahead, then it's going to be very difficult to pick them off if you're Dynasty Ruby. So I think that Ruby's going to want to get an early game pick in the top lane.
Yeah, and especially as you were mentioning that Poppy's also going to be the choice of most likely top laner for the side of Worth, and that steadfast presence probably going to be able to do a lot, pretty much completely negates what Rel wants to do just entirely with how long that crash down takes. That being said, Mordekaiser, you're talking about that top lane answer. And well, that's certainly one way to do it, especially if it is going to be that Poppy in the top lane. Mordekaiser, I mean, I haven't seen this matchup since Poppy really isn't too much of a top laner these days, but will be a selection I'd have to imagine very much favored towards that top half of the map for the side of Dynasty Ruby.
Going to be really hard to ever gank. I'm trying to figure out how to pronounce this CZI. Is it Psy? I'm going to go with Psy for now. Psy on the Mordekaiser up against the Poppy. Going to be pretty much unkillable in that role, which makes sense as a pick when you know that you're into Zac. You want to be on a champion where you can feel comfortable about being in that side lane, not feeling threatened. And once the level 6s come through, it's pretty hard to gank Mordekaiser no matter what champions that you want to go in on the 2v1 with. But especially against the likes of Poppy Zac, they're just not going to have the damage to cut through all of the healing that Mordekaiser can do in the Rift Maker plus passive. So I think that Zai is going to be pretty safe here in the top lane. I think Scone is going to be looking for ganks more towards the mid and bot on the Zac.
I mean, that is fairly understandable given this point. Poppy not exactly the most high econ top laner either. That being said, if you take a look as a picture of the whole entire side of the Dynasty Ruby comp, one thing I also like what Mordekaiser does here, it just kind of gives that extra bit of objective control with him being able to go up to the jungler and say, Lamau, no. And with this extra range with Kaisa, especially if it does get itemized towards that poke AP build, if you can secure vision control around an objective, it becomes basically impossible to walk up to from the side of Worth. So definitely something to keep in mind there. As you're saying, Worth definitely having that very defensive, disengaged sort of composition. So it's definitely something that I want to see Dynasty Ruby at least attempt from their side.
Yeah, I think that they should be able to set up around the objectives like you're saying, but at the same time, if Worth is at least on level footing, they can kind of send in their front line to go check it without being too committal towards it, because they do have some of that ability to escape. So I think that there's going to be a good balance in this game, and a lot of the team fights are probably going to be drawn out because there's no huge burst champions on either side really other than Lux. And I think that with so many DPS threats, it's going to be a lot of trading blows back and forth throughout the fights and trying to position well and trying to put yourself in a spot where you're going to be able to finally finish off some of those health bars. I think that's going to lead to a lot of exciting, drawn-out fights.
Well, with that in mind, we will be entering the spectator delay. So don't go anywhere soon, but when we come back, we will have Game 1 between Dynasty Ruby and Worth in AGL's Week 3 here. So yeah, don't go anywhere.
Will you follow me Those cravens backstab me, deceive me. Never shall I tolerate their crimes again. Now let the hunt begin. Yeah, 7,000 souls scared and daunted, such a tale of woe. Not too long ago, this village was a golden scene of hope. Call down the reckoning to bring back hope and peace, restore our glory to live forever. Yeah, bring down the dark regime. I know how to unleash eternal power. Lead us to order. I am the light bringer. Yeah, I am the light bringer. Now listen, fellow warriors, I ask you, should my campaign come to an end? There's way more to avenge. Whoa! 50 million souls living in this realm without much hope. Not too long ago, this kingdom was a golden state of hope. Yeah! Call down the reckoning to bring back hope and peace, restore our glory to live forever. Yeah, bring down the dark regime. I know how to unleash eternal power. Lead us to order. I am the light bringer. Call down the reckoning, bring back hope and peace, restore our glory to live forever. Call down the reckoning to bring back hope and peace, restore our glory.
And we are live for game one here between Dynasty Ruby and Worth, or I should say the other way around, as it is Worth on the blue side here for game one in AGL's week 3. And we are underway. And one thing I kind of might want to look out for is something that happens whenever Braum is drafted is a potential invade tiger.
To Summoner's Rift.
Yeah, got that strong level 1, especially going to be assisted by an Azir, but it's not going to be a full invade coming out here.
30
Actually,
seconds
just a
until
5
minions
point coming through from Worth, as Dynasty Ruby looking for some dangerous play. So maybe the reason that we don't see the invade here is because it's up against 3 auto attack focused champions. You've got, of course, the Kai'Sa with Hail of Blades is going to be pretty strong early on, but also Azir and Graves, they'd like to be in those early confrontations. So even though Braum's passive is pretty strong early on, not going to be seeing anything here. The 3-man invade is enough to get a deep ward for Dynasty Ruby, so they will be able to track where Scone is starting off his clear. And I think that's going to be good enough to at least get a little bit of extra safety if they use it properly for their bot lane. They'll be able to know when they're going to be in trouble, so when they can take trades and when they want to start playing a little bit more defensively.
Yeah, and obviously having that extra vision will mean that they will know that a Saucy Cactus might just be a little bit late, or that will have to either take a long way around to get to this lane, side, and would have that slight advantage. That being said, how that might affect the bot lane, as there was the leash towards that blue buff for Super Gremlin, and arriving late to this wave doesn't seem to have affected the side of Dynasty Ruby too much immediately. First on is even that regard. A little bit surprising in that. That being said, they will hit the level 2. Finds the double stun. Silent Hearts getting a nice chunk out there onto Devox, and advantage level when you flash in. Always something you have to look out for the second portion of Rel's remount. We'll get the ignite down. Won't force out the flash. Won't force out the heal from Bruno. So he will still have that option in a future fight to be able to get that full health of the heal should he need it.
Yeah, gonna be able to survive it for the time being, and honestly a lot committed there by Silent Hearts just to go for that all-in play. It's understandable at the level 2, but they just don't have enough follow-up overall to be able to break through this Braum. Even at level 1, a lot of armor available for Braum, so he's a difficult champion to kill, and the exhaust is enough to repel it. That said, there's going to be a Hex Flash to watch out for from Silent Hearts in the future, so I think that was the largest part of that trade, was just trying to find any summoner spells that could be forced back in exchange for setting up the Hex Flash.
Yeah, Hex Flash really is a funny rune like that, where it's like, sometimes you wish you could use it without having to give up your original flash. But so, like, in the early levels, sometimes, at least in my cases, I played a lot of piano, and, taking Hex Flash is a thing that we do, and it's, like, it's a weird situation sometimes. You're just like, do I flash so I can just Hex? But, weird thing with Rel is that Hex Flash kind of works better when she's dismounted. Not really all that effective with the crash down. That being said, Saucy Cactus will be coming out by Junglers. Have to take towards the mid lane though. Reboot ban being Nazir will he'll just hop away.
I didn't see the full setup around that, if there was any binding.
Oh, about a crash down, knocking up 2 though. Stun lands onto Bruno. Unbreakable does come up and deflects a lot of damage there. So, but at first looked like a good pick from the side of Silent Hearts on a slightly unlevel line between the support and ADC there. It's Braum. Braum happened.
Yeah. I mean, there's not going to be any point in this lane where I think Dynasty Ruby's going to have any kill threat. There's not a lot of kill threat to go around in this area of the map, but at the very least for Worth, if they can bring Stone in with a wave state that has a little bit of an overextension from Dynasty Ruby's bot lane, then they have some potential for setting up a kill. But I don't think that there's ever a spot in this lane where the Xayah Braum ever feels threatened. It's all about getting to the point where the poke is enough to chunk them out, and you don't have to look for those all-ins because you can get pressure without having to threaten it. That's where Dynasty Ruby need to get in this lane. And considering that it's Hail of Blades, it could be the Liandry's build. We'll have to see if that's the case. I think that we might still end up just getting Static Shiv because people probably still on that even if the patch is coming.
If you have another gank towards the mid lane and the level 6 Hundo does come through, so the damage is there as the snare lands. First blood going up to the side of Ward.
We didn't get to see what happened the first time around to know whether there was a elastic stim shot that landed to set up a light binding, But we saw the positioning from Doe in that gank setup was really good, because walking to that side of the wave meant that Reboot Van couldn't evade the light binding once the elastic slingshot connected. That meant that Doe was able to land full combo after that, and Reboot Van didn't even bother to flash, because once the CC chain had been lifted, it was about 100 HP left. There's just one more auto attack with the passive for Lux to be able to finish off the kill. Doe on the board early on, that's great news for Worth.
Yeah, and as you were saying that did also allow the side of Worth to get this straight. Scum when he used that elastic slingshot to get away this time. Some consolation in that Scuttle Crab getting fought over, but still overall really big advantage going over to the side of Worth. However, a bit earlier on, one thing that was kind of went under the radar a bit was that Super Gremlin was able to take away that blue side top quadrant of the enemy jungle, or like top half there, take their whole blue buff on that side of the map. So if you look at the farm score now, still going over the side of Super Gremlin. So though Zach not exactly the most economy heavy jungler ever, definitely not the most reliant on it, getting that extra gold onto someone like Graves can definitely be quite effective, especially with how wide this margin is early on.
I'd expect to see a lot of pressure from Dynasty Ruby around the top side of the map. They did get the counter pick into that top lane, which means that they can really look to play around these Rift Heralds. And I think that with a champion like Graves, you're trying to play a lot for yourself to begin with. So being able to pick up a Rift Herald, drop it, and get extra gold, that's where you really want to be on the map. But we're seeing a good rotation from Worth and being able to bring 4 members up to contest. And it looks like contest is something that they're going to have to do, because they're going to be able to take it uncontested. They will just be given over what you often see in return for the Rift Herald, which is a few plates in the bot lane. Could end up losing Bruno as well. A wise decision there to flash before any encounter occurs. You probably have to blow it if you got into the 1v2 anyways, just using that to get to safety, get in position to farm, and not losing any HP in the process. That is the exchange that is given over, and right now it's a slight gold advantage for Dynasty Ruby on the back end of those plates. But of course, with the Rift Herald in inventory, Worth has the means to reset the gold back to even.
Yeah, and with that obviously in hand, it was only one plate that Luxodon was even able to grab down there in the bot lane. So really, once that Rift Herald does get used, that's generally at least 2 plates. So the fact that it's not really able to get two plates out of that onto your ADC, I mean, it is a solo plate, and it is onto the Kaisa. So that will be, in that regards, it does feel okay. That's one thing you can kind of take out of it, but in terms of total gold, I'd still say it still largely favors the side of Worth. And that being said, Saucy Cactus here is in a bit of a tough situation. We'll have to flash down to get away, so no flash on that Poppy. Without an escape might come good in a few moments, especially as we gather around the mid lane here, made for a fight. Flash forward from Silent Hearts will find Sko99. We'll have that pass still available. They can even proc it. Doesn't look likely. Concussive blows gets Silent Heart very low, but not low enough. Meanwhile, Graves too low to really come out of this one as he's CC'd down. Can't really do anything there, as Saucy Gremlin will be killed in this one for nothing. Over to the side of Worth. And that was bad. I wonder how, I really want in all chat Worth to be playing the mental warfare of saying Worth every single time they pull off something like this, or especially if they find Luxodon in this bottom lane, will get sacrificed by that passive. And as 4 members now in this bottom side, Sko99 getting that kill, so all over the map. Worth slowly now starting to pull away with their lead.
Yeah, and we keep seeing Worth playing on narrow margins. We saw it in the initial skirmish around mid lane that Scone and Doe were playing perfectly around their low health bars. Scone able to get out of the trouble right as the health bar was around 200 HP. Doe going pretty low at the beginning of the fight, but still being able to land a good binding there onto Super Gremlin at the end to make sure that the kill was secured. And then they go into the bot lane, and now it's Devox's time to be tanking up the tower shots. Ends up going under 100 HP there just to be able to allow the team to complete the dive. And yet again, they find situations where they can give themselves gold and not really lose much in return as Dynasty Ruby trying to contest but not quite able to get anything.
Speaking of contest, this second Drake has spawned. It'll be the Ocean Drake up now, and perhaps trying to get a little bit of vision control there on the side of Dynasty Ruby. Well, they will be able to get a few wards down to be able to at least see into the pit. Still kind of on the outside looking in that regard. That being said, Sai in this top side goes for that our allies Crystal Scepter first, and it's doing a lot of damage. Thinks he can get the all-in here, flashing onto Saucy Cactus, and I think he just might find it. It's a very low copy, not really able to do much. I may have spoken slightly too soon. Wait, no, hold on! I was trying to figure out what happened for a moment there. I was like, why was it Sai sent all the way? It's because he uses ultimate, and so there's that certain barrier. Meanwhile, at the bottom lane, Bruno will pick up another kill onto Luxodon. So while my brain slowly has the hamster wheel running in there and finally figured it out, it's a trade of kills in the bottom lane onto the enemy AD carry for the side of Worth. That being said, that interaction from Sai I was a bit stunned by it. I was like, wait, why did he like just fly back all of a sudden? I was so confused for a few moments there, but yeah, really fun interaction there, and really good heads-up play from Sai to, well, pull that off. That being said, we do have the crackdown coming through. Finds a low Bruno on the Xayah, will find the kill. That being said, in exchange for what a lot of these health bars are really low, Reboot will also find the kill onto the enemy laner, and now Scones and Vox looking low. Does have that killer instinct available and did land the passive there. Not quite going to go in onto the enemy Braum though. Bit too close to his tower for his liking. And so with all of that, Dynasty Ruby very quickly pull this game back to a 4-4 kill score.
Yeah, I don't really know what Worth was doing there trying to start up that Drake. They were clearly not in position to be able to do so. The health bars on at least 2 of the 4 members in the area were extremely low to start out the fight. A third health or lower. And I think that with the landing of the collateral damage coming through from Super Gremlin, the fact that he was able to drop Stone to around a third HP as well. I mean, the execution wasn't bad from Worth, but they just couldn't be able to put themselves in a position to deal with all of the full health bars coming in up against their just about third health bars. And that meant that they just all died right away. So at the end of the day, going to be a few more kills gained on the side of Dynasty Ruby. Now they're going to be in position where they can start to look towards the Rift Herald as well, because while they haven't been ahead on the kills earlier on, they have done a good job of just getting CS advantages in pretty much every role. Now we can see that the first items are starting to come through. Big power spike right now for Super Gremlin on the Dusk Blade. And of course, getting the static shiv is huge for Luxodon as well, going to be able to clear out the waves extremely quickly. Setting up for a 4v4 around this Herald.
I will send the enemy top laner out into the Shadow Realm. That being said, Super Gremlin, I believe, will be the one to claim that Rift Herald on the smite there, and his fights all over for Super Cactus going low. That being said, Silent Hearts is going to be snared up by that light binding. Doe out of mana now, so really just can't do anything here. As the Rylai's Crystal Scepter does a lot of work there, prevents him from going anywhere. Reboot Band now getting kill onto enemy support. There's nothing that Scone can do in this fight except for run away. Elastic Slingshot will keep him alive for now. That being said, 3 for what? Going over to the side of Dynasty Ruby. It's not over just yet. Scone getting dangerously low there. Not enough to find lethal there.
At this point, things are looking
Scone?
good.
Oh.
And make it even better. Going to be able to sweep in, pick up another kill for Reboot Van. 4-1-2 now on the Azir.
Luxton will get a nice auto attack with that static shift, as you were mentioning. A trade of flashes will mean that he will avoid that damage, but a good sidestep from Bruno to dodge the Void Seeker. And with the box now arriving, will at least keep him alive. That being said, Silent Hearts is on the hunt, and the Ignite probably would have been enough, but a little stab of the lance there will secure the kill for the enemies.
Good look to drop the Rift Herald here as well and just knock down the first tower. Might be able to get 2 charges if they do. The Rift Herald was picked up by Silent Hearts in the end. Looks like they're just going to be happy to take the tower itself without needing to drop the Rift Herald. Gonna reset, gonna have a Drake up in 2 minutes, so that's a valiant target to choose if you want to use the Rift Herald in the mid lane when it's spawning. That'll get a lot of extra pressure. The first 2 Drakes were split. It's Infernal Soul, so, I mean, that's one that you'd like to have, especially on the side of Dynasty Ruby with all the poke that they're looking at. But it's not the easiest priority.
Reboot Van going to get hit by the final spark, but a bit of an issue layering up the CC there will mean that he'll be able to just pop away on the Azir. He'll be fine with that. You were mentioning, with the next Drake coming up in about 1 minute and 30 seconds, it should be back up. His ultimate should be back up as he is level 11 for that next fight, but it might be something to look out for in terms of the exact timings. Wait, hold on. That's where the Silent Heart's going to get caught out a bit here. Now, back by the concussive blows coming very low, but that being said, Luxton on the side here, no support for that engage. Go might just be caught out here, going low, going down. Luxton gets that first kill. The box has nowhere else to go. Super Gremlin picking up the second kill, so to start out this fight 2-0, even though the teleport comes in from Saucy Cactus. No! Going to get sent to Brazil and side. I mean, yeah, with the Rylai's Crystal Scepter. Absolutely massive value on that single item build coming through immediately, ensuring that he gets those 2 kills that we have seen now. So Dynasty Ruby, despite the slightly uncomfortable start to this game, has very quickly turned this one around as they will take this mid tower and the Drake, I would imagine, after that.
Yeah, it looks like they might be able to finish it off even before the charge comes through, so they should be able to get the second charge with ease. Maybe even look towards a third charge, though. They may feel a little overextended if they do, so. Gonna be backing off now. 5-man towards Drake, and that means that there's an opportunity to cross-map for work, and I think that they should take up that opportunity because I don't think there's any way into this dragon right now. Looking to try to take away some enemy top side jungle, but nothing there for Scone, so just going to be most likely this top tower going down, and that's all that they'll get in response for the second Drake taken by Dynasty Ruby. Super well done now. Dynasty Ruby up about 6,000 gold. Not even going to lose this top tier 1 just yet, so they're going to be able to stay in their advantage state for a little while longer. 2 items now complete for Luxiden. Still no mythic just yet, going instead for the Nashor's Tooth. My guess is now that we're going to see the Ginsu's variety, which, I mean, I think that it's not as strong in a situation where you're looking for poke, but
Go just really can't go anywhere here. Will land the CC, but just too much damage in 2v1 to really be able to do anything there. That's going to be Reboot Van picking up his 5th kill of the game, and going to be feeling just that little bit better. Flash in from Silent Hearts into the 3v2 bit on Aegis here will mean that the support will go down on the side of Dynasty Ruby. That being said, the passive will keep Scone alive there, and Bruno will just find all the damage he needs onto the enemy ADC there. Very surprising amount of burst. Very something that can always come out from the side of Zaya if you can land the recall of her feathers. Can definitely do a surprise amount of burst there. He's definitely caught out Luxiden, especially without the flash. and will go down to make it 2-0 over to the side of Worth.
Nice job of exchanging turret aggro there to make sure that no one ended up dying. Bruno able to step up and tank the tower for a few more shots while the revive was coming through from Stone. And that ends up making it a 2-0. Getting a little bit of gold back here. Still down about 6,000 as a team as the top lane tower falls. But, you know, they're just trying to get some gold onto their big carries. And right now, Bruno is looking to be the big carry in the later game team fights. Doe did a pretty decent job on the Lux in the early stages of the game. Hasn't been able to find a lot of good angles to follow up on some teammates engaging in the middle stages of the game. But I could see a situation where if Worth can start to find some points of pressure on the map, make Dynasty approach them, then they'll be in a good spot. So that's what they're going to want to try to find.
Yeah, and they will have to find these angles, but one thing that something really help. Oh, wait, Saucy Cactus though. It's in a little bit of a difficult situation, not committing much of this fight on the side of Dynasty. And there it is! The Shuriva Shuffle will find 3. That being said, not enough immediate damage comes through, and that will be the shutdown going on to Bruno. Luxodon in the backline though, firing away those auto attacks to get the kill onto the enemy AD carry. That being said, now without the damage towards the side of the map, health bars go low. Super Gremlin does pick up the first, picks up the second, and the lifesteal is coming through. He feels okay. Doe now going low. No more cooldowns. Triple kill going up for Super Gremlin. And welcome to Duskblade's passive making you untargetable. Means that he will be able to survive there and come through with the full health bar in what is a 4v1. So Reboot Band getting in behind very early will set up his team for success, as Dynasty Ruby will be able to claim the Baron off this one as well.
Just as promised, we get those extended team fights, and this time around, Dynasty Ruby able to scatter them in a way that makes the team fight accessible for their big carries. Luxodon does a great job getting onto the backline, taking out Bruno. Bruno, for his own credit, did a good job of stopping Reboot Van right at the beginning of the fight, able to take out the enemy Azir. But the fact of the matter is that Luxodon didn't get touched all fight long, able to just annihilate the enemy squad without any repercussions. Super Gremlin able to take out Doe there at the end, able to use that Duskblade passive to its full degree. And now we're going to have to see if Worth is going to be able to set up some picks, because at this point, down about 10,000 gold, it's going to be difficult to find any terms of fighting that are going to be favorable unless you're able to single out one member of the enemy team.
Yeah, I mean, they still do have a lot of that first variable. They do find, like, Luxodon, that being said, or they find the enemy support here. Fight going down to that side of the map. That means that now we go to the Reboot Band going low, Reboot Band going down now. So without their mid laner is the side of Dynasty Ruby. That being said, there's just too much damage that's available. Silent Heart's still alive, as it will be Super Gremlin picking up that kill. And meanwhile, even though Bruno doing good very early on in that fight, will send the enemy AD carry to Brazil and back to the fountain as a result.
That was a really crafty play from Scone to try to set up the pick onto Silent Hearts. But unfortunately for Worth, there's just no good targets to pick off, because if you pick off one member of the enemy team, then they're just going to come through with their 3 other carries and finish off the fight in their own favor. So right now it's a very difficult time to find any responses. You gotta pretty much be able to know where all members of the enemy team are and that they can't fight you to be able to even find your pick. So the only thing that I can think of that you can respond to that with is just taking down some of these tier 1 towers with the objective bounties. That's the only place with any real gold to look towards. And right now, down 12,000 gold, that's not going to be enough to come back. So it's going to be, in my estimation, up to Dynasty Ruby to hand this game over to Worth on a silver platter, or else it's theirs to take.
I mean, that really is what it boils down to at this point now, that Luxodon finishing that Wensi's Rage Blade to really fulfill the Exodia dream of the Kaisa build there, even though, as you mentioned, not exactly the most I don't want to say popular, but kind of probably not. I'd say it's probably one of the more disputed builds in the game currently. As to what's most optimal on Kaisa. Either way, with how few of these, with how these team fights have been fragmented, and how Luxodon has been able to get into close range, I can understand why he's gone with it.
Well, I definitely think that when you have 3 items and no one on the enemy team has more than 2, then you're going to be successful no matter what it is that you've built, and that's kind of the situation that Luxodon is in right now. They're going to still get plenty of value out of those 3 items no matter what they were. And at this point, I think that Dynasty, they just need to look to take this next Baron coming up in 2 minutes, maybe take the soul if they're feeling super cautious, or just get a pick
Hold
like
on,
this.
the clock's getting low. Super Gremlin from 3 screens away going to pick up that kill with the ultimate. So, on something that's on a very low cooldown, going to be able to pick up that kill onto the enemy support, really for what is basically nothing in terms of commitment. And as they're choked out worth a little bit more, it just seems to be a confirmation of what we'd already believed, Tiger.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing really gained by that other than maybe some safety to be able to force out the Xayah ulti here. Looks like a re-engage.
Oh, hold on, flashing from Sko? Not commit that. Oh.
Ends
Bit of
up
a strange
missing the...
decision.
Yeah,
I mean,
you gotta land your stretching strikes if you're going to go for that, so ends up having to turn around, turn tail and run. I mean, it's just going to be up to a potential miracle steal. Oh, that's rough. I mean, if you're Lux and you're not able to deal more than about a quarter of the enemy ADC's health with your ulti, that's going to be a very difficult situation to come back from. I should know about that. I think right now we're looking at a situation where it's just going to be about the wave clear for really a long time at this point. We need to be able to get 3-4 items. I disagree with the Zhonya's build here for though. I understand why you feel like you need to buy that, but when you're behind, you don't have the luxury of buying defensive items. You just have to buy the damage items and hope that you're not put in a situation where you die before you can get out all of your damage. Because by buying defensive items, you just make it so that you don't deal any damage. Now the other team doesn't even have to worry about killing you. They can just sit in your damage and realize, oh, I'm only losing 30%, 40% from your full combo. You're not a threat to me.
Yeah, and especially on with the competition of worth, really there's Lux. I mean, really the only sort of damage coming through outside of Xayah, and that being said, we will have, if I talk about damage, Luxodon immediately gets a kill onto the enemy support to start out this fight. The health bars are still full the side of Dynasty. Ruby Stone getting low, not quite down just yet. Will get sent into his passive, but I don't imagine he'll be able to get out of this as Luxodon gets yet another kill as Dynasty Ruby turned towards the Baron once more.
And much like how it doesn't matter what you build when you're this far ahead, it probably doesn't matter what you build on Lux when you're this far behind. I think that right now Dynasty will be just going to be able to take that Baron for free. Now setting up Soul for themselves as well. I mean, no smite to steal it from Scone. Ult is available for Doe, so if it isn't worked through perfectly, then maybe there's an angle to steal away the Drake. And it looks like that's the max length for the Lux ult, so trying to steal it away. Gonna be able to just about get it, but not quite.
Oh, yeah, that was awfully close. And not quite getting there. And so with the Infernal Soul, just once more, it's another thing on the list that you can check off for Dynasty Ruby that gets you just all that much closer to finally destroying the enemy nexus. And there's just really all Worth can do is just look for any sort of fight here. That is going to be a light binding that seems to apparently do no damage. Final Spark going to get put through Zonya's, and Reapman finally goes down. that being said, as you were saying earlier, they just saw enough damage on the backside of this side getting killed onto the enemy jungler. So they, even though they do find the pick and do a really good job to find the enemy mid laner there, there's just too much damage elsewhere on the composition of Dynasty Ruby coming through, and it's just so much farther ahead that it just doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It's actually, let's look over to the mid lane. That is going to be the first inhibitor going down, probably going to get followed up closely soon after, as Fox barely stays alive, but he's the unbreakable. And once this inhibitor does go down, it's just, there's not really any sort of way back into this. It's still now flashing away. The crash down coming through, Ferromancy going to keep everybody in place. Fox finally going down, and as these health bars just melt away on the side of Worth, you have to feel that this will be game one going over to the side of Dynasty Ruby.
Good closeout there, no fear in the eyes, going to be able to use that Baron buff to push to their advantage. They get a couple of kills in that one pick that Worth looks for in the bot lane, and that's all that they really needed there. They had a couple of pushing lanes. Worth had a little bit of wave clear that they could have tried to stay alive with, but not really enough to do more than just one lane, and all they could do was look for those picks. I think that they had the right idea, but it was just too little too late. Dynasty Ruby able to take game one with the dominant performance coming out from Super Gremlin, 12-1-11 on the Graves, also getting a winning Horizon on the jungle camps. I mean, that's a pretty rarity to see. You don't usually get a Flame Horizon in the jungle role, but now going to be looking towards game number 2, where I think that Dynasty Ruby are going to feel really confident if they can get a similar draft to what they had in game number 1.
Yeah, I mean, really, even though the early kills went over to the side of Worth, it did free up Super Gremlin to claim as many camps as you saw, which is part of building that Flame Horizon, as you were mentioning. And so as soon as that, it was, I believe it was the second Rift Herald that it came around, that is really just felt like the point in which they managed to break any sort of chance that Dynasty Ruby had, and they just held on to it for the rest of the game. But with that in mind, we will send it to a break, but when we come back, it will be the draft of game 2 between Dynasty Ruby and And a bit of a perhaps a miscommunication as we return for the draft of Game 2 between Dynasty Ruby and Worth is that we're still a little bit questionable on what the drafts actually are, but Worth did actively choose Worth did actually choose to change sides in their draft. So I'm good. Hold on. I'm going to throw it over to you real quick, Tiger, because I'm trying to find it myself and communication issues.
Okay, yeah, we don't have the draft yet, but we can see
There we
the
go. Wait,
act-
I got it. I got it. Thank you, producers. Okay, so quick rundown. Dynasty Root, blue side first picked Rel. Wrong, Aurelian Soul is the options for the side there. And then Yone Kaisa, so Dynasty Ruby getting Kaisa once again. That being said, Kog'Maw going to be the choice of ADC. Viego Maokai rounded out for Worth. Meanwhile, Kha'Zix Rumble will be Dynasty Ruby. So very, very damage heavy on the side of Dynasty Ruby. And with the option at the Rumble top lane going to be a lot of damage. And once more from the side of Dynasty Ruby, a similar kind of philosophy in terms of the damage mix, damage mix here coming out. Tiger.
Yeah, I'd like to see the Yone flexed top and the Rumble going mid lane. I think that's a lot better matchups here. I think particularly Yone would love to be into Maokai. So, I mean, if the players want to play the specific champions, that's fine. But I want to see Reboot Van then taking the Yone and going into the top lane and making it a possibility to get those better matchups. I think that Rumble's fine into ASOL, but nothing like special there. Also notable this time that we've got a lot more focus around the junglers taking resources for themselves. I mean, we saw last game that Super Gremlin did well on the Graves. This time that one getting taken off the table, but going to be able to still look to carry on the Kha'Zix. And now going to be up against Scone on the Viego, which is going to be a lot stronger in the skirmishing type of situations than the Zac was. And I think that's going to give Scone a little bit more opportunity to play aggressively within the game.
Yeah, because around the mid game, around the second Herald and the third Drake, we really started to see how much more uh just how much more agency Super Gremlin had in that last game. And so now with that extra agency on the jungler here, we'll be looking forward to see that. But with all of that said and done, it's a little bit of a confusing portion of the draft. But for this going down, who do you got for game 2, Tag? Because we got a very kind of somewhat very different looking draft.
Well, let me get into the win conditions at the very least for each side. Once again, Dynasty Ruby has pulled out the quad carry comp with having all of their roles except for support doing major damage within any given team fight. So they're going to want to see a similar mid-game power spike to what they had last time. And I'm not sure that Worth has done a lot to give themselves a chance to mitigate that, but they have changed their look up a little bit in the sense that I think that they've got a lot more pick potential this time around. Still sticking with that Braum plus hyper carry in the bot lane, but Kog'Maw's got a little bit more poke to his advantage, a little bit more range than the likes of Isaiah. And then they've got the Aurelian Soul, which is going to be able to do more consistent damage throughout a team fight, and the Maokai, which is better for setting up the picks than they had in anything last game. So I think Worth has improved their draft a little bit from before, but I'm still favoring what Dynasty have brought to the table here.
Well, this will also be the first time in a really long time that we see Maokai returning to the top lane. In my opinion, where he belongs, but whatever that means. But for now, even though we had a really short draft because of a little bit of a miscommunication between players and production, we are now entered the spectator delay. So don't go anywhere because we will be back real soon between Dynasty Ruby and Worth here in AGL's Week 3. We are back for game 2 after a fairly short break between Dynasty Ruby and Worth, and straight away maybe we have a slight shenanigans coming out from side Dynasty Ruby, stacking this top side pixel. We're going to do too much here as we have a fairly standard point defense start for both these teams coming out.
I've just looked up the rules, Isaac, and I've found that apparently mid and top are allowed to roll swap before 2:30 when all of the lane swaps are unlocked for AGL. So great news, we could see the roll swapping happening right from the get-go. But on the other side of things, we do see that in the 5-point, Zai and Reboot Van are lined up in the spots where we would normally expect them to be in the top lane and mid lane. So not necessarily going to see that roll swap after all. I think that things are okay if they don't roll swap, but they're like really hard to deal with, especially in that top lane for Saucy Cactus if they did roll swap. So that's why I had stressed it as a point that could be contested here by Dynasty Ruby. But with that all aside, I think that the top lane matchup should be pretty good for Saucy Cactus. Going into the Rumble, you're going to be put in position where you can get your passive up pretty often on Maokai, which doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to win every trade, but in addition to the draft spot, it's going to at least make it pretty difficult to kill off with Maokai. And I think that for Rumble, that means that you're just looking to scale up, maybe get to level 6 and look for some roams toward mid, but not looking to team up with anyone to go for kills in this top lane particularly.
Yeah, not exactly the most kill pressure on the Maokai. That being said, as you were saying with this Rumble, going to be able to get feel very healthy there with the passive. So probably not going to be too concerned there, even though a few of these early trades gone slightly over to the side, but take a quick look at the health bars and how that has helped. I mean, he's right back to full health again. I kind of also expect that to happen throughout the rest of the Sladen phase in the top side of the map. I think so. We do have this star of opposite sides for these two junglers, and as we were looking at that bottom lane a bit for a bit there, slight advance in terms of levels towards the side of Worth's bottom lane, as they did not leash their jungler. Death level is going to be find really hard to get any sort of priority in this bottom lane for the side of Dynasty Ruby.
I'm not gonna lie to you, Isaac. I think that this is going to be a pretty boring early game.
Yeah, me too.
Tide starts from the junglers. There's not really any gankable lanes. There's not even enough setups for either side to look for that. I think that if there was anything that was even possible, it would maybe be a top side look from Scone. But that's really hard to imagine, and right now the junglers just kind of left without anything to do are going to maybe try to force something around the mid lane.
Speaking of forcing something around the mid lane, we do have both the junglers now heading in with a low health bar on Do. I'd say with a much larger early damage advantage for the side of Dynasty Ruby, as Aurelion Soul definitely does take a lot of time to scale up. Super Gremlin not going to find any jungle camps here. That being said, jungler Reboot Van now collapsing in on this one. Maybe trying to find a 3v2 fight here, but mostly just delaying each other just a slightly bit longer.
Yeah, nothing really to do there. I mean, you could try to steal enemy Krugs, I guess, but that just costs too much. You're giving up waves. Looks like Silent Heart can try to find a trade here, but it's so hard to kill off a Braum lane. I mean, this is why you draft the Braum. I like a little bit better this Braum alongside the Kog'Maw, because I think that Kog'Maw, once you get to those later stages of the game, is much more impactful in team fights in a lot broader set of circumstances than Xayah. And last time around, we saw that Bruno was trying to carry some of the team fights and just ending up getting assassinated. I think that one thing to look for in this game is if Devox kind of adapts the strategy to just be on top of the ADC just to make sure that the protection is there, not allow for any of those one-shots like we saw last game from Luxaden on the Kai'Sa. And maybe that's going to be the boost that Worth need to be able to start winning some of the mid-game team fights.
Yeah, and also if you're mentioning with the Robin and with Xayah specifically, we saw in game one with, I was a bit surprised that they didn't go with Khan, to be completely honest. It could also do a few things with the, if both Xayah and Khan can start with their W abilities to start out. Definitely has a lot of kill pressure and definitely has a lot more presence in the bottom lane fairly early on. And Xayah, my excuse is that they're fairly similar names. Okay, no, but with Xayah is that she does also have a lot of tools for her to appeal for herself with the blade caller, being able to have that self CC in front of her. So yeah, it was a bit of a strange look on that that bottom lane duo that should be improved later on. Mostly wait for levels to come through. That being said, I mean, look at Yone, things Reboot getting very far forward, getting a really favorable trade, and even though enemy jungler shows up, he just goes Lamau no.
I think that Do's going to be alright with that. We keep seeing all of the damage going in favor of Reboot Ban on the Yone, but in all of these trades, we're also seeing that Do keeps putting down the star symbols, and it's all about drawing the star symbols when you are Aurelion Soul at this point. You want to just proc that passive as much as possible and start dealing more damage later on. Right now we're seeing that even though all of the damage from the trades is going in favor of Reboot Ban, it hasn't been able to turn into any sort of kill pressure just yet. Maybe that's going to change here now that the level 6s have come through, gonna have that fate sealed available. But I think that for the time being, the trade's still going to be feeling good for Do.
Yeah, No, definitely. So long as he doesn't get too far behind, though, the CS count is starting to kind of get that way. As so it was mentioned, as we were just talking there earlier, Super Gremlin did manage to pick up Drake all on his own. So getting the first Infernal Drake is the side of Dynasty Ruby, and Infernal Drake never really a bad thing to take for that. But we'll get a different map this time around, and as the Fate Seal is available, though trying to get low, trying to escape, but won't be able to there as he didn't have Flash available. Reboot Band taking advantage of that, getting the solo kill onto his enemy midnight.
Hooray, we finally got a
We got
kill. Can we get some Pog in the chat? Gotta appreciate that. Gonna be able to finally start seeing some action. I think that we'll get to see a little bit more starting around now. We're getting the ultis coming through in the bot lane as well, so I think that we actually will start to see a lot more kill pressure around the map from both of these teams, not just in the mid lane. But I think that we're going to see Dynasty Ruby feeling a lot more aggressive than they did last game around this time, because they have that momentum not just from this game getting that first blood, but also from how they were able to execute near the end of last game. So I think that they're going to be feeling a lot more able to go for some plays. Reboot Band could be in trouble here.
Yeah, I mean, he'll have to come back to that spot, and there's nothing that he can really do, as Bruto will be the one to pick up the kill onto the enemy mid laner. So that Kog'Maw getting that kill under his belt. Going to feel nice with that extra 300 gold, and with the lane pushed out the way it was, he should be able to return in time before losing too much farm down as well.
Yeah, the full commit, bringing both members of the bot lane to be able to pick up that kill. That's a strong movement there from Worth's side. Can be able to at least get some value back in the mid lane. And getting that kill onto Bruno as well is going to feel pretty good. Gonna have to get to like 3 items before the Kog'Maw is really in that big power spike state. But once you get there, you never stop being highly valuable to your team in team fights. So I think that any sort of acceleration towards that going to be feeling really good for Worth. And they're able to make the play around the mid lane as well, so that helps Doe come back a little bit. Still down to just about 10 CS, but pretty close in the gold because of that first strike as well.
That being said, Sko going to flash forward, trying to try to take Super Gremlin. He does go invisible, so trade of ultimates for now, trade of ultimates and the flash if you're Sko. So slight, in terms of tools, slight advantage going over to the side of Dynasty Ruby, not having to commit that summoner spell, but with this available Ruby fan, still looking like he's feeling confident with these trades, but he's done too much damage there just.
Looking at a bit of an invade here from Silent Hearts, trying to get a ward.
It in, will be tagged by the concussive blows though, snunned up, goes low. Will use the Killer Instinct to try to find the shield. Will go down, and it actually is the passive from Scone to keep himself alive as he goes untargetable. And as Teleport comes down from Saucy Cactus, this is Worth going to find a second kill going over to the Viego. And so, kind of out of nowhere with nothing to play for around the map, it's 2 for nothing going over the side of Dynasty Ruby. So they do find the angle, do find a bit of a lackadaisical movement from the side of Dynasty Ruby. As Reboot Band now kind of in a little bit of a difficult situation here. 3v2 potentially coming through. That being said, low health bars will ensure that nothing will come through for this, as Doe really can't do too much there if they committed.
All of that gold going straight on to Scone, getting both of those kills secured. Gonna be able to finish first item off of that. Catching up with Super Gremlin, not going to be able to get any further ahead or anything because both of them still in a pretty strong spot right now. A little bit of a CS advantage for Super Gremlin. That's why it's still pretty even though it's going to be those 2 kills going over. Rift Herald also going to be dropped in the mid lane, so Dynasty will be looking to get some value back. They were able to get a little bit in the top lane while the play was happening around bot side for Sai. Sai up pretty handily in the CS department and also starting to look towards some of those plates. And now with the second Drake of the game coming up, we may have another fight on our hands here pretty short.
Yeah, and as the bottom side of the map is starting getting to be contested a little bit more, Sai does have a few tools available, so we'll have a teleport advantage up for this dragon fight should they commit to it. For now, really just a lot of posturing and dancing here and around the dragon pit, so doesn't really have to look for much here. And as we were saying before, as we look back to the top lane, it is really more of the same, but we will have to look forward to that Summoner Spell advantage and that potential numbers advantage for the second herald.
Yeah, we're not seeing a lot of happenings across the map. Gonna see some trading in the top side.
Oh wait, hold on, Sai going to ultimate for that, but not really going to be able to find the kill here. That being said, Saucy Cat is going to stay around somewhat low. Does have the passive available to him, so probably doesn't feel too bad about this, but has to be careful there, especially doesn't have that teleport available.
Yeah, I think that's a smart equalizer, able to get the damage down from it, but also clearing out that wave extremely quickly. That means that there's an angle for a reset, has some teleport available to work around this fight. The fight's already done.
Hold on, Silent Heart's kind of getting caught out here, uses the crash down that won't make its way over the wall, so quickly to start out this fight, it is a numbers advantage going over the side of Worth.
Yeah, and they're not going to be contested in this instance, it would seem. Waiting now falling drums that it's not going to be responded by any of those plates being taken. So that's a pretty big win here for Worth. Going to be able to delay the game a little while longer, get towards their late game power spikes. I think that the lead is still pretty heavily in Dynasty Ruby's favor right now. But they got to take advantage of the fact that they are on their better power spikes and look for some kills while they have that advantage. Looking to try to find something on Stone here.
Yeah, but won't land the Fate Sealed, so I'm not sure if he'll have enough damage. Stone going very low, but it won't matter as the flash forward from side will take it. Or was it a flash away? Actually, it's a flash away from Stone. I might need glasses after that one. I heard flash, my brain was like, can't possibly use for an escape. But so still the kill going over to the side of Dynasty Ruby, which means that without the jungler, they will be able to take up this second Rift Herald uncontested.
Yeah, they're getting a lot of value in different places on the map. We're seeing once again Super Van farming up well, but Reboot Van popping off in a lot of these fight situations, able to set up the kill this time around, picked up by
hold on, we do have a fight towards the mid laner. Equalizer going to slow up Bruno and the Vox. The damage is just too much to handle from the bot lane of Worth, and so the double kill going over to Zai, and that farm advantage that he was able to build for himself there in the 1v1 in the top lane. Only slightly marginal early on. That being said, flash forward from Silent Hearts will force a trade of flashes there, but with the Hex Flash, going to feel like it's going to be very much Dynasty Ruby favored.
It seems like Doe has to flash on cooldown. Everyone just trying to get a piece of this Aesol. Still only one death to his credit. Gonna be once again hopped upon here by Silent Hearts.
And Luxodon, actually a bit of an interesting layer of abilities there. And you saw it did kind of catch Doe out there as the passive was procced by the crash down with Silent Hearts. He then followed that by using the Void Seeker, then using his ultimate, then kind of froze Doe in place and take his focus away from a potential incoming projectile. Brock, that full Brock that passes very quickly, got all that first down, will get that kill from mid lane, and as the Herald gets summoned here in the mid lane, Scone's on low, Scone going down, Reboot Band finding the pick there for Dynasty Ruby, so doing really well to find these picks to these fights on isolated members, doing everything that they need. That being said, here comes Maokai with Twisted Advanced Crackdown going to be used, Equalizer will find 4, Ferromancy doing a lot of work. Sai now coming in on the backside of this fight, and another 2 kills will be picked up by the top laner of Dynasty Ruby, as yet again more kills going over to the pockets of the members of Dynasty Ruby without really anything getting traded in return.
Dynasty Ruby have finally cracked this game wide open. Starts with the pick. Super Gremlin able to find the isolation Q damage to set Scone super low to start out the fight. And then the Fate Sealed takes care of the rest of that. Then it looked like Worth was going to have the counteraction of kind of finding Silent Hearts there. But unfortunately, in that...
Super Gremlin will be stunned up, but Tops play. Sorry about that. It's one of those things where it's like you see it and you're like, oh, maybe, but like there is no this time. Before I send it back over to you, Tiger, Toad very low, down 2 levels, and there's just really not much he can do there in that exchange. Doesn't even need the ultimate, is a reboot ban, so yeah. Feeling not all that great if you're the side of Worth at this point, but it is kind of similar to the last game in the guards where it was somewhat even, maybe even slightly Worth favor that you'd say, until all of a sudden Dynasty Reboot finds the one fight that they need to go and start to run away with this game as Fox gets low, uses the Glacial Fissure. Will keep himself alive a little bit longer with his Unbreakable. Now as Bruno walks in, but will be caught out by the Kaisa Reboot fan. Now going to get a kill onto the enemy carry. Scone will be able to get the return kill, but won't even be able to escape there. So 2 for 1 going over to the side of Dynasty Ruby once more, and just as I was saying, just it really just further continues through what I was saying about how these games have gone for Dynasty Ruby, where it's close, maybe even slightly Worth favored in the first few minutes, until all of a sudden they find one fight that they need. It's Reboot Bam not giving me a break at all. Is trying to find Saucy Cactus. I feel like Maokai will be able to deal with that a little bit better, as he will actually be okay there. But yeah, just more of the same, really.
Well, suffice it to say that Dynasty Ruby have a lot of damage available to them, and Rel is pretty tanky and does some good CC. So that's kind of where we're at in this game. They're pretty far ahead. Now, Zai suddenly 5-0-1 on the Rumble. It kind of came out of left field. We're seeing at this point that pretty much any member of Dynasty Ruby feels pretty comfortable taking a 1v1 against just about any member of Worth. And if they can combine all of those 1v1s to make a 5v5, it works out just as well.
Well, the Fate Sealed will go wide from Reboot Ban, so they won't have that available for the next few seconds here. So get a little of a fight around the spread buff. Now as we kind of have a group up, maybe this can just be the moment Worth is looking for. That being said, as I say that, Dynasty Ruby gets out just as fast as they get in there.
They're going to look to start up the Baron here. I think they shouldn't have any problem taking it. They've got plenty of DPS for it. And if you can make sure that Rel is the main damage soaker, then you're pretty healthy through the clear of it as well. Still not on those 2-item power spikes for the majority of the squad just yet, though, so maybe feeling a little bit apprehensive, wanting to make sure not to give any opportunity for Worth to find a play that would maybe pull them back closer in the game. Maybe not realizing just how far ahead they are either, up about 9,000 gold at this point, even though they've been behind in kills for the majority of the game, and now they just barely lead, and they're up 1 Drake and a few towers.
Yeah, and that's just really how they manage to play out these games. Kind of slowly fall slightly behind early on, but as you're saying, they took I do actually like what they ended up going for instead. Being said, Saucy Cactus is probably going to be able to survive this. It's tanky enough to where, as the Reboot Ban is forced back, we'll be able to find the kill there. But I do like what they did this instead of just trying to force it down in a potentially contestable fight is where they just cleared out any sort of vision that Worth had and put Silent Hearts in and around to find CC there, and there was just not much that Worth could really do to find their way towards that Baron pit at all, especially on the red side without any sort of way to get vision. And oh, then it was no longer contested, and now it's once again it's Dynasty Ruby just feeling all that more comfortable, making the safe high percentage plays. But at this point, that's really all they need to do.
Well, they've moved into a 1-3-1 to try to get the side lane advantages in the 1v1 matchups that they've got in the solo lanes. But I feel like if they knew just how far ahead that they were and just how well the team fights could go, they could just go straight into the 5v5.
Speaking of team fights, damage will come through. Silent Heart's going low, Silent Heart's going down. Bruno picking up his second kill of the game as he gets closer to that second item. And even though really it's the 3-item power spike that you like to see from the side of the Cogwheel coming through, he gets that much closer to getting the Quincy's Rage Blade, which isn't a bad power spike within of itself, so that fairly quickly, especially if Luxodon gets tagged here. Flash forward from the box, trying to find the stun as it comes through. The extra CC resistance on Luxodon. Will it be enough to keep him alive? No, it's not. Bruno going low. Bruno finally going down to Super Gremlin, but that being said, 2 kills more onto the AD. Everything's going to feel quite alright. That being said, Scone doesn't have anywhere to run as he gets taken down, so quickly turns into a bit of a 2v2, a 2-for-2 there. That being said, at this point in the game, really anything, any sort of kills, any sort of gold that you can find on the side of Worth is, well, in fact, worth, especially if you can get it onto your Cogmos now.
They're relying a lot upon their potential for wave clear, though. Still up against 3 Baron buffs. Gonna be losing this mid tier 3 here pretty quickly. All of the tier 2s have been taken out as well. Baron lasting another 30 seconds, just about. Gonna be enough to set up for the 4th break of the game. Gonna be the 3rd one taken if Dynasty Ruby can clear. But I think that one thing that's worth noting here is that a lot of this could have just been avoided if Dynasty Ruby could have just gone into the 5-man group mid. They were up 10,000 gold. Not that they could have necessarily known that right from the point where they were, but they should have at least been aware that they were super far ahead in general, and that their team fight is really good when they're this far ahead. And if they could have just taken that knowledge, applied it to the situation, and realized, oh, the only way we lose is by splitting up and getting picked off, then they could have pretty much just rammed it down Worth's throats in the mid lane, and there would have been nothing that could have been done about it.
Yeah, and so all the while, all the extra passive stacks going on to Doe slightly more. Once he gets his second item under his belt as well with the why am I even saw Mordecai's book the why am I like this, Tiger? The
I don't know.
the ability slow Rylai's Crystal Scepter. Yeah. God, what the hell? I even knew it without prompting last time around. Sometimes no thoughts head empty, and that's the state that we're in.
Well, right now, Reboot Van's gonna be looking for the tier 3 top. No Baron buff to push with, but at least crashing that wave makes it hard for Worth to come out of their base right now. They are doing a pretty good job of just clearing waves out. They do have that at their disposal with the Kog'Maw, with the Aurelion Soul. They're pretty good at clearing out at least 2 waves, and they can kind of run back and forth between the waves while there's no Baron, and they're fine just soaking up that pressure as a tandem. But once the next Baron comes up, they're gonna have to find something to do. They cannot be fighting.
He's getting down to about half health here, popping away now. Meanwhile, Reboot Van finding his way onto the backline. Equalizer not going to find the kill, though. Bruno's only gets it down to half health, and it's going for side to flash away. So a few more resources expended on the side of Dynasty Ruby without finding too much, though. I mean, an inhibitor will help with the next Baron coming up. Well, I say this. His Super Gremlin does find the isolation damage on the Scone, so I speak a little bit too soon as the junglers. We really see how much extra damage Super Gremlin has at this point, especially in that 1v.
Yeah, we do see a much different build this game from Luxaden going for that earlier power spike and getting the Dust Blade and the Muramana. Of course, still taking that Nashers to get the W upgrade. Now the all-in.
Oh, hold on. This is the moment we have waited for. As the ult from Aurelion Sol does a bit of damage, does get a trade of kills, but the box gets so low, and with how low these health bars are, Scone recalling, respawning just now. So 1-1 maybe here with Scone does have an ultimate available, but can't quite find the execute as he misses Heartbreaker there. So a bit hesitant maybe from the side of Worth, despite what could have been tragedy for the side of Dynasty. It would be fairly easily.
Yeah, good to be able to get out alive, and that's one of the strengths here that Dynasty Ruby have that kind of they've stolen away from the last game of Worth, is that they have so much escapability within their team comp that with this huge lead, it's difficult for Worth to respond to it because they cannot just single out one member and burst them down. They don't have enough damage for that, and for pretty much all of the possible targets, you have to deal with some form of disengage potential. And now they're just going to have to find something to do around this Baron. Once again, they're looking to walk up towards it, maybe trying to get Scone in for a steal. They're going to be zoned off by Silent Blade.
As they cut into Baron, then we'll open up the fight. Paramancy used Scone going low. Scone now finally going down, but at the trade of Reboot Band. That being said, the shutdown did go onto the Braum, so at the very least, the enemy support, they're going to claim all that gold. But with the Baron taken, and they feel like they could probably just push in a little bit farther here. Super Gremlin getting really far forward with this enemy base. Maybe trying to find Bruno perhaps, but choose.
Not going to be able to find the target. I think that D-Box was pretty low, trying to walk back towards the base, probably within one Void Seeker of dying, so that might have been the target as well. But Super Gremlin wisely deciding that if there was going to be a play to be had, it was already off the table by the time he got there. And you don't really need to force anything right now because you're up 12,000 gold and you're about to take the Chemtech Soul. I think that that's probably good enough to win 99% of the time, and this is one of those times.
Yeah, especially if Scone just gets caught out here by Super Gremlin with that further isolation damage, trying to take his own blue buff, but at this point, what we call his jungle isn't really his.
I feel the pain of Scone right now. You want to be in a position where you can just go out onto the map, but that's just not a possibility. Even with the vision wards being in relatively good spots, I like the defensive vision that's set up right now by Worth, but it just doesn't matter because Kha'Zix goes invisible and then just one-shots you. Nothing that you can do about that. And right now, the only thing that can be done is just clearing up these waves. A nice cancel by Silent Punch. That might be good enough to win the game right off the rip.
It really might be. These waves are massive. It also comes with Aurelion Sol, but as Bruno's picked off at the start of this fight, you have to feel that that will probably be enough for the side of Dynasty Ruby, as Saucy Cactus won't be able to recall at all. Scone goes down, Doe very nearly goes down, but the end of the series will come through before that happens. So Dynasty Ruby, once again, very, very controlled sort of situation once they finally get that lead. And yeah, so nothing too like over the top super huge fights, but at what they didn't really need to do that. So really well played from the side of Dynasty Ruby.
Clearly the best team right now in the Chemtech division. On display here today, Dynasty Ruby coming out on top in the 2-0 fashion. Both games, once they got a foothold in the mid game, they looked dominant. All members of the squad were showing some proficiencies in some good ways. We got to see pretty much all four members that were on carries in farming roles. They were having moments where they just were able to outplay the opponents. And then Silent Hearts just being consistent on doing some of that CC coming through with the rel there in that game. That was enough to set up the team for success. And looking into the future, I mean, it's going to be hard to find a team that Dynasty Ruby can't take down, but we'll have to see if they can continue their success because team's going to be looking to evolve all throughout the split. Worth, of course, a worthy adversary coming in 2-0 to begin with. So definitely a team that's going to come back strong from this loss is my expectation. We'll see how they do throughout the rest of the split as well, but definitely a good sign here for all of you Dynasty fans out here for Ruby going to 3-0.
Yeah, and in such a convincing way too. It's definitely an exciting time to be behind this Ruby squad, but we will have to wait until next week for that to continue. But until then, unless if I get any other word, I believe we're signing off for tonight. So I will say thank you for tuning in to this broadcast on the Dynasty Org's Twitch channel. I've been Isaac, alongside me has been Tiger, behind the scenes as our producer has been Swiper. And yeah, until next time, we'll have to see you out. Have a good night.